Good evening, everyone. You're all very welcome to our Men's Health Awareness webinar series. It is, of course, Men's Health Week this week, and we're here to celebrate that. I hope you're all feeling good, and by the end of this hour, you will be well versed on what we at the Marie Keating Foundation can do for men in Ireland, and also how important Men's Health Awareness Week is to us. Often and for many years, we have been known to support women with breast cancer, but that has all changed. So do keep an ear out this evening and indeed over the coming weeks to learn more. Tonight, we have the privilege of Dr. Mark Rowe, who will be in conversation with us about our prescription for happiness, vitality, self-help and positive lifestyle changes. So we're really looking forward to that. But before I introduce Mark, let me tell you a little bit more. Ireland was the first in the world to adopt a national men's health policy in 2009. And this is something that we should be very proud of, and what we are going to learn more about over the coming weeks. And who the World Health Organization states that a healthy man is one who is empowered to experience optimal physical, mental, and social well-being, and who experiences health as a resource for everyday living. So that's what Mark is really going to be talking to us about. And one of the reasons the Marie Keating Foundation is so passionate about, reaching out to men is that we know that cancer is unfortunately the leading cause of death in men, and it runs at about 33%, followed by cardiac disease at 29%, and followed then again by respiratory disease at 13%. But we know in most circumstances, we can actually help ourselves by making some lifestyle, choices and making positive changes, as we will hear from Mark. So it is for men. I know I just need to enlarge my screen here. Sorry. Oh. So this is for men, but it's also for the women in your lives, for those who have concern about their health in any way, their overall health, for those who've had a cancer diagnosis and have survived treatment and come out the other side, but also for those who may still be living with cancer and in treatment. So do sit back and enjoy the evening. I just have a couple of housekeeping rules as we go along. So I'm Helen Forrest, Director of Nursing at the Marie Keating Foundation. You're in your own homes, which is a really nice thing. We don't have to move out, we don't have to go anywhere, and we can still have our cup of tea while we're listening. But do maybe keep your cameras off for the moment and your microphones on mute. We are recording this session and it will be available afterwards, but we will bring you back in to the room for a questions and answer session and make it a little bit interactive, which would be nice. You could turn off your phone as well and give yourself this space and time just for you. Ava is in the background. Ava is our Senior Communications and Content Officer, and Ava is managing the technology for us. I know, Ava, you haven't been very well today, so a big thank you for being here with me this evening and with all of us. So at the moment you don't have the ability to speak, but as soon as we turn off the video, that will be something we can do. If you want to ask any questions, do put them in the chat box or the Q&A box there. That would be really nice, and we can have a look at those as we go through. We would love you to participate in the webinar and feel very much a part of it. So yeah, we'll come to your questions and answers after the session. So just a little bit really about the Marie Keating Foundation and also to talk about what we've done so far for men and to talk about Men's Health Week in 2021. And then I'll hand you over to Mark. So within the Marie Keating Foundation, as you well know, Marie Keating Foundation has been here for the last 23 years, and it was set up because Marie Keating died from metastatic breast cancer. She didn't like going to doctors, didn't like hospitals. So she knew she had something growing on her breast. She had a type of cancer that was growing and was visible, but she was afraid. So she left it and she didn't tell anybody. And unfortunately, she presented when she was very sick. So her family didn't really want to see this happening to anybody else, and they wanted to do something about it. And they had the ability to put some mobile units on the road. So one of the first services that was ever set up was the community outreach service, and we have 3 mobile units in the country, and we have 8 qualified nurses in health promotion and oncology. So we have a lot of experience out there. We have a mobile unit in the south, in the east, and in the west. And they can turn up anywhere. They could be at a beach in the summertime, you know, quite fitting on a sunny day to talk about the risks of skin cancer and hand out some sunscreen and talk about how to use that properly. So that's a really good service. On a good year, pre-COVID, we would have seen about 29,000 people face to face. We also have an Ask the Nurse service, and that is a really busy service at the moment and has actually grown exponentially since COVID. And the questions people want to ask have been, I suppose, bothersome. They have been around anxiety levels, maybe not being able to get to the GP, but we have Mark here tonight to talk a bit about that as well. Being afraid to go to the GP or being afraid to go to hospital, but also having concerns about, you know, a loved one or a member of a family or a friend. So that has been a service that has grown certainly since COVID. Bernie and Mary and Alicia, who are in the audience tonight, Bernie in particular manages the corporate wellness webinars, and that's for all people to avail of. And it talks about different types of cancers, the signs and symptoms that you should look out for, and when you should go to your GP. We run a Survive and Thrive program for men and women who have been diagnosed with cancer and come out the other side. And that's a self-management program. It has become an 8-week program. And again, that has grown since COVID because people have turned up online for these programs. They don't have to leave their homes. The stress levels around trying to get from A to B have reduced, and the commitment is much better. But again, I suppose it's one of those services that it's great online, but it's even better face to face. But we have what we have for the moment, and we're doing really well with that. And we're getting people, you know, into a transformative mode from coming out of a diagnosis, having had treatment, and actually living their best life by managing themselves well. And finally, we have a positive living program, which is for women at the moment with metastatic breast cancer. And that is a service that has grown exponentially by 200% since COVID. These women have been cocooning. They have been very afraid, fearful, lonely, and isolated during the whole COVID time, because they're on treatment still and they are immunosuppressed and they're afraid of mixing in the community. So we've had our ups and downs, we've had roller coasters along the way, but again, a service that has been evaluated extremely well and very positively throughout the whole COVID. But we can't wait to get back together either and see each other face to face. So there's some of the services on offer. What I'd like to say to you is for positive living, I've talked about it being for women with metastatic breast. We are now in a position to set up positive living programs for men with metastatic cancers of any type. So if you do know somebody out there who may be struggling a little bit or not, as the case may be, and may just need company and be in the same space with people experiencing the same things, that program will start on September 30th and will run monthly, September, October, November, and December. And we also have a Survive and Thrive workshop, particularly for men, in September. And we always celebrate men's health in Blue September. And we talk a lot about prostate cancer awareness during that month. So that program, as I said, is for men, and we would love you to be there. So if you know anybody who you think would benefit from an 8-week program, please let them know. Some of the things we've done so far have been, I suppose, very much related to men's cancer. So I gave is about bowel cancer, and it saved my life. So, you know, that's a campaign we ran in 2017, and it got men talking. It's, you know, it's a nice, catchy sort of thing that people, like, you know, their ears pick up and say, what did that say? But it is about learning about the signs and symptoms of bowel cancer, and particularly around bowel screen for men as well. Every year, as I say, we run a prostate cancer awareness program campaign, and lots of kind of webinars and face-to-face when we can as well. So we've had campaigns including Stand Up for Your Prostate, and you see there PJ Gallagher He's wearing a pin, a little blue man pin, and that is our symbol for prostate cancer, and to stand up to it. And we also ran campaigns around Heroes for Hope, and you'll see those on our website. 14 men telling their stories about prostate cancer, and what hope it gave them, like how they got through that diagnosis and the treatments, and the hope that they had afterwards. This year, I hope you will have heard about our bladder cancer campaign with Davy Fitz. So it was actually the month of May, and it basically was Give Bladder Cancer the Red Card campaign. So it was the traffic light symbol, red in yellow, go to your GP. So red being blood, in urine, go to your GP. Red is danger, always. And I think Mark might agree with me on that one. And I suppose then a few other things we did. Get men talking is always important. We believe and we know that men do talk, and they do talk about their health, but they need to be given that time and space to do that. We do a lot of work with men's sheds. We do a lot of work with the traveller community groups, with Syrian men now, refugees in Ireland, and we work together with local development networks and social inclusion groups. We work together with GPs, somebody like Mark. We work with some of the cancer support centres in Ireland. And this photograph here with Survive and Thrive is a programme we did, a 6-week programme. And Mark very kindly launched that for us in the Solace Cancer Support Centre in Waterford. And we're trying to think it's probably 4 years ago, actually. But that was really well attended and really well evaluated. Skin cancer awareness, of course, really important, especially in these months and in this weather. Skin cancer is the most common cancer in Ireland, and melanoma is the dangerous cancer and a form of skin cancer that we need to be very aware of. And, you know, our Irish skin doesn't take the sun very well, and we do burn, and the rates are higher. There's over 12,000 cases of skin cancer diagnosed in Ireland, with over 1,000 of those being melanoma. So again, an awareness program that we drive very much from the months of April right through to September. And not forgetting men in Look Good, Feel Better. So I don't know if you've heard about Look Good, Feel Better. This is a not-for-profit company, charity as well, and we work very closely with them. And we've done a lot of work, of course, with, you know, Look Good, Feel Better for women, looking after, you know, hair, nails, skin. We're doing it for men too. So you need to tune in here in September, because we'll be doing this for men. And we have much, much more on the way. So I'm moving into the space now where we're talking about cancer prevention, and I'm not going to dwell too much on this because I know Mark is going to talk about this. Your health, your choice. Not always your choice, and we appreciate that and acknowledge that. But we have lots of programs running in schools, in communities, men's sheds, in traveller groups, in corporate wellness. We run corporate wellness programs. And these are like programs that actually give you a lot of information, knowledge, and power. We know that knowledge is power. And we know that once you have knowledge, you're empowered to do something about it. If you have worries or concerns around certain, you know, aspects of your life that are not good, and that could be physically, it could be, you know, so physically, like we talked about blood and urine, we talked about, you know, changes in your skin, go to your GP. In COVID times, people have become very afraid. We're coming out of COVID now, and we're going to face some quite difficult times. I think we're going to have long waiting lists. We're still going to have the fear factor. So we do need to encourage people to talk and come forward and learn about their health, and learn to act on anything that is different. And I think the most important message here always is know your own body and know if something is wrong. And the way we can help ourselves in your health, you know, in our health, is looking at our diet and maintaining a healthy diet, being physically active, looking at our alcohol consumption, if we drink alcohol, and you know, limiting that to the required amounts. I'm not going to go into that in any detail now. Smoking again, we know is a cause for a lot of cancers, in fact. So smoking cessation is really important, and understanding that there are supportive services out there, and that we're not stigmatizing people who smoke. We're actually trying to help people who smoke. Being safe in the sun, we've talked a little bit about that. Cancer screening, bowel screen is available for men between the ages of 60 and 69, for women also. And again, you know, we talk a lot about reinforcing that message and making sure that you actually do avail of those free tests in Ireland. Vaccinations, well, when we say vaccinations these days, I think we're talking about COVID. Have you had your vaccine, and have you had your second one? Are you fully vaccinated? I know you, Mark, were elated one day when I was talking to you and you started vaccinating in your practice. So really good news stories, and they will keep coming. But the vaccinations we're talking about here, particularly for young boys and men, would be the HPV vaccination to prevent certain kinds of cancers like head and neck cancers and deep throat cancers. So we're into Men's Health Week. It started yesterday and it runs to Sunday, Father's Day. So for all the fathers in the room, I wish you a very happy Father's Day, and I hope it will be a good one. This year's theme is making the connections, because I think we're all in a space where we maybe had built strong connections, but we've lost them over time because of, I suppose, the regulations. And so what we're asking people to do is check in with yourself. Check in with somebody you care about. Check up what's happening with you and with them, and check it out. If you need to check something out, go and see your GP. We have a free four-part series to help men across Ireland focus on their health and well-being. So we would encourage you to come back here next week. Next week's session is between 1 and 2 in the afternoon, and we'll be talking about I suppose, you know, our ability to re-engage, and our ability, because we have, I suppose, been in a world over the last 15 months where we've procrastinated over things. Should I do this? Should I not? Should I leave it? And looking at that re-engagement and actually learning how to do it with Lurk and Brennan. So that'll be a very valuable piece of, information to take away as well. So tune in. It is Men's Health Week. And I'd like to put a big shout out to Colin Fowler, who actually manages and chairs the Men's Health Forum Ireland. There are numerous associations involved, like the Irish Heart Foundation, ourselves, Alcohol Aware Ireland. There's a huge amount, the Men's Sheds, all working together to try and make this a very positive experience for men and their families in Ireland. So a big shout out to Men's Health Week, and let's celebrate. Finally, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Mark Rowe. And as I said, we've met before and we have worked together. And I thank you, Mark, for your continued support throughout the many years with the Marie Keating Foundation. Mark graduated 20 years ago in UCD in medical school. So he's the founder of the Waterford Health Park, which has become both the base for Mark's medical practice as well as the lifestyle medicine Be Well Clinic. It's an absolutely beautiful place. I have been there to visit, and I've been into the healing garden there. It's superb, and it's no wonder it won an award from the World Architecture Festival Awards of 2010. Absolutely beautiful place, Mark, and I must go and visit you again, actually. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, Mark, and I'll leave you to talk to us.
Okay, Helen, well, thank you very much for that kind and generous introduction. There's a little bit of feedback coming back from me speaking, so I'm not sure if that's at my end. I'm just going to knock back the sound, so maybe that's working now better. So yeah, so I'm delighted to be here, Helen. Can you hear me okay? Let me just sound check that. Just give me a thumbs up.
Yep, I can. Yep.
So I'm delighted to be here to speak to you about health, well-being, vitality. As Helen said, I've been a GP for a long time, but I've got a really keen interest in what I would call positive health and living with vitality. You see, I'm biased because I believe that health is the greatest gift there is. I believe it's a priceless asset that without health, you have nothing. With health, everything is possible. Health really is like the crown on the well person's head that sometimes only the sick person is able to see. And of course, what I really learned over the years, not so much through textbooks, but from my own lived experience, is that health is so much more than the absence of disease. It's so much more than the idea of the pill for every ill. It's moving way beyond that to a complete state of emotional, psychological, physical, and relational well-being, all underpinned by a strong sense of purpose, knowing that who you are in the world really does matter. So really understanding that all of these different elements of your health are really all important, and that the environments you spend your time in can also make a big difference to how you think, feel, act, and behave. In fact, I have a qualification in lifestyle medicine. I was one of the first cohort of doctors globally to do this exam in Arizona 4 years ago, having been in Harvard, and their annual conference was on only last weekend, and I was on, and it was really interesting to learn that, you know, there is evidence now that your error code has more of an impact on your long-term health than your genetic code. In other words, your DNA is not set in stone. Your DNA is not your destiny. Your epigenome, which is like the switch that sits on top of our DNA, and it influences how your cells, how your DNA expresses itself, has a major impact, maybe 70 to 80% of how your cells act and behave as you go through life. And this epigenome, this master switch, is controlled by your lifestyle largely. In other words, the amount of restorative sleep you get, the amount of exercise and movement you take, the quality of the food you take in, and perhaps most importantly of all, how you're able to embrace and recharge from stress, build rich relationships, create downtime in your life, learn how to cultivate inner happiness and well-being, and connect with your sense of purpose. So I suppose really in essence what I'm saying is that your health is really so connected, and small changes can make a big difference. You don't need to make massive changes to reap major long-term rewards. So I'm going to talk about this later on, how the power of small, how small daily investments in your well-being can really add up to make a big difference over time. So I want to talk specifically about men's health. You know, I wrote the men's health book about 13 years ago, and it doesn't seem that long, but time moves by so fast. And I gave all the royalties to Mary Keating, the men's cancer division at the time, because I really knew from many patients I'd seen in my practice just how much of a gap there was between the knowledge that was available and yet the decisions that people made on an everyday basis. And I call that health IQ. In other words, health IQ is all about having the knowledge and the, I suppose, attitudes and awareness to make good choices and good decisions to support long-term health and well-being. And, you know, I remember a young chap I saw who came in and he had a testicular lump nearly the size of an orange. And he'd had it for nearly 3 years before he plucked up the courage to come and see me. And he had testicular cancer. Fortunately, he did very well. I've seen other people bleed from the back passage, men bleed from the back passage for 8-9 months before they'll go to the doctor. And that gap between appreciating and becoming aware of a symptom and actually taking action, in other words, getting, as Helen said earlier, getting it checked out, checking in with yourself, going for the checkup and getting it checked out, that can be the difference between having a simple procedure versus having lifelong treatment. So, you know, there are some specific things when it comes to us as men. I call it DAD, D-A-D, which stands for Doctor Avoidance Disorder. Doctor Avoidance Disorder is really the inbuilt tendency of many men to avoid the doctor at all costs. And maybe it's because we're afraid, or maybe it's because we don't believe we are, you know, we've got time, or we don't believe it's important enough, or we don't want to be judged. Or maybe it's that sense of bulletproof invincibility that comes from testosterone and man being the traditional hunter-gatherer in the world. Whatever it is, men can have pretty unusual health beliefs when it comes to health-seeking behavior. And, you know, men are paying a price for that to this day in terms of their long-term health and well-being. I mean, men die, the gap is closing a little, but men continue to die at least 3 to 4 years earlier than women. And the average man in Ireland will spend at least 15 years or more living with a chronic adverse health condition, whether that's diabetes or heart disease or many cancers. And many of these health conditions are completely preventable. In fact, the European preventative intervention trial, it's called the EPIC study. It looked at 5 risk factors, and it found that if you ate a diet that consisted largely of fresh fruit and vegetables, whole grains, nuts and seeds, and you minimized your intake of red meat. Secondly, if you exercise for 30 minutes a day. Thirdly, if you didn't smoke. Fourthly, if you didn't drink to excess. And fifthly, if you weren't overweight, then you would reduce your risk of diabetes by 90%, reduce your risk of stroke by 80%, and reduce your risk of cancers by 40%. A big study in Harvard University found that if you exercised 30 minutes a day, if you didn't smoke, if you didn't drink to excess, and you had normal weight, you could hope and expect to live 12 to 14 years longer. That's how important lifestyle can be for your long-term health. That's how important positive lifestyle changes can influence that master switch, the epigenome, and influence how your cells age and influence the risk of getting many chronic health conditions. And furthermore, mindset matters. A big study done in Yale University has shown that if you've got a healthy attitude towards aging, in other words, if you see aging as an opportunity to become wiser, to gain new perspectives, to, slow down and appreciate the ordinary beauty of everyday life more, you can hope and expect to live 7 years longer than someone who has a negative view of aging, who sees aging as losing things, not being able to do this, not being able to do that. So mindset matters, and the positive everyday lifestyle choices you make can make a big difference. And what's even more encouraging, and I really want anyone who's listening to this to take this home, it's never too late. None of us can change the past. None of us can go back to the beginning and start again. But starting today, you can create a brand new ending in your life and live with more health and more vitality. The small changes, the past is gone. It's like research and development, but the small changes you make starting today can make a huge difference over time. So I'm conscious that there's a small group on the webinar, and I want to make this as interactive and as useful for you as possible. So if people want to interject with some questions, I can try and answer questions as best I can. I mean, I always say there's no such thing as a silly question. It's great to ask questions. I think asking questions is much better than knowing all the answers, because I believe we don't grow old when we stop playing, as George Bernard Shaw said. We grow old when we stop learning. And if you keep learning, keep growing, keep developing yourself right throughout your life, it can lead to a big difference, a big positive impact as well in terms of your health and long-term well-being. So Helen, are there any questions coming in? Or
well, Mark, what I might do first is just maybe share my screen and show the video, because then we can stop recording. Is that okay?
Perfect. That sounds terrific.
Yeah, so I'll do that first, and then we'll come back to the Q&A and we'll let everybody into the room.
Great.
Just bear with me a minute. I wanted to show this video because it's actually a story of Tony O'Donoghue's, well, I'm sure I'll play it and you'll hear it.
Yeah, well, I've had my own brush with cancer. It's about 7 or 8 years ago now, and I had this little lump on my neck, and I said, I'll go next week. It's not that big a deal anyway. But I was coming to do a program in RT, and I had to go to makeup, and Siobhan in makeup, who knows me pretty well, she said she wasn't too happy with that lump, and I said the same thing. No, it's nothing, I'll be grand. And she said, I've advised someone in the past about this, and I'm telling you now, you need to go and get that checked. They went through biopsy and stuff, and then they realised that it was a tumour, and that stops you in your tracks. That stops you thinking of the next match or the next broadcast. My father had prostate cancer, and yeah, it was a long time ago, and it was at a time when, you know, cancer wasn't spoken of. It was like, you know, it was too big a deal. It was too scary. Cancer was a killer. Simple as. You got cancer, you died. It was the big C. Don't talk about it. Don't tell anybody. I remember I had just started my first year in UCC when my dad, who had been sick, was brought to the Mercy Hospital. I remember bursting through the doors, and I was running up the stairs, hoping to see my dad for the last time. And the security man tried to stop me. And my uncle behind said, "It's okay, his father just died." And I didn't know that. I thought I was going down to see my dad for the last time and say goodbye to him, and it didn't happen. And it really was such a long time ago, and it's actually really tough. Prostate cancer took my dad away, and it doesn't have to take people away. It's so eminently curable. It's easy to deal with, like lots of cancers now, and I think people should just get their heads around that. It's the long term you have to think about. You have to think of your health, not for tonight, next week, or next month, but for the years ahead, so that, you know, hopefully, and this is for men, you know, you can expect to live a much longer life than your predecessors, than your father or your grandfather. And thankfully for me, with Siobhan in makeup, I listened to her. She made me listen to her. She scared the life out of me, and she made me go. And, you know, thankfully I'm through that, as I say, 7 or 8 years later. You know, it was a terrifying time. I'm still scared of cancer, but I'm still happy to stand up to cancer and look it straight in the eye and go, "F*** you, cancer."
So that's a nice video with Tony O'Donoghue, and he's really challenging the taboo or even the embarrassment that some men can feel, you know, discussing their feelings and their emotions around cancer. Like he felt quite emotional there about not being able to say goodbye to his father, and, you know, he's expressed that. So I suppose, oh sorry, move on to the next slide. So I just want to say one more thing, Mark, before we stop sharing. So we're on our first week tonight. So thank you very much, Mark, for being here and for sharing your experience with us. So in week 2, we're going to look at better health for men, better health for all, supporting men's health and well-being with Lurkin Brennan from the Men's Development Network. And he's going to talk about the procrastination, the re-engagement, and how to do that. Week 3, we're going to look at access to our pharmacists on the high street, with Kathy Marr from Deleek Pharmacy. And again, that's another avenue. And Mark, we might talk about this a little bit, because that's another avenue men can go if they don't, you know, if they feel fear and they don't want to go to their GP, or they want to have that discussion, they could come to the Marie Keating Foundation, or even go to their local chemist, wherever they may be. And week 4, we have Peter Jones from the Waterford Development Network, the Waterford Sports Partnership, and he's going to talk about Get Men Moving, and the whole concept that's spread all over Ireland, where men are actually physically active, they're connecting, and they're feeling good, and they're telling stories. And he's bringing along a couple of men to talk about how they have, you know, how they've reacted to all of that and how they are now. And as I said earlier, we have Male Survive and Thrive program beginning the 14th of September. So if you'd like to register for that, mariekeating.ie/events, and then male positive living meetings, which are going to start on the 30th of September. And that would be from, sorry, that says 2 p.m. there, but we be from 12 to 2 p.m. And that would be on a monthly basis. So check into our website for those.